Okay, good morning. We are starting with Reish Samech Bet Seif Hey, right? Hilchos Milah. I'm just going to say, if you heard the story yesterday, I don't know how I botched it, but it's Rav Aryeh Leibowitz. And I don't know where I came from. And Rav Krohn got his psak, he quoted from Rav Zelig Epstein about waiting the next day after taking medication. But again, one has to understand which medication he was talking about. I did speak to a couple knowledgeable mohalim, and they're not familiar with anyone using such a hagdara. It's always based on when they're healthy. Right? Many medications people take for a lifetime. It's strange to use medication as a litmus test when they're healthy or not healthy. But anyways, we mentioned that yesterday. Let's read on to Hey. Im nolad keshahayu. Right, how do you define health? Exactly. Im nolad keshahayu nirim barakia kochavim ktanim ma'od. Okay, so now the baby's being born is born late in the afternoon, early evening, right? And you see three little stars in the sky. All right? Yesh lismoch ala kochavim v'safek lamul l'machorat. Once you see three stars, now I think right now you can go outside, not this moment, it's the morning, but nowadays you can go, in this time of year, you can look up early in the evening or maybe even before Shkia, I did not pay attention, and you can see, I think, three planets. Yeah, it's those are Gedolim, I understand. You'll see, this is a little confusing, we're going to see this halacha. We're going to read Hey and Vav together, and we'll see more or less if we could understand it or not. You'll decide. It says three small stars, right? Very small. So once you see three very small stars, it's enough to create a suffix that it's already been shkia, and now it's the nighttime, or it's the next day. Lamula machorat. So that you can't do it on the previous day, you have to do it on the next day. Kevan shelo lo Shabbat v'lo Yom Tov. It's a suffix. It creates a suffix that maybe it's the next day. So you would do the Milah on the 8th day from the nighttime or the 9th day from the day, because now we're not sure, because it might be puzzle or it's a real problematic if you end up doing a Milah on the 7th day. So we never want to do that. We're better if we're not sure what's the 8th day. We're much better off to do it on the 9th day because it's after day 8 than if we do it on day 7. Right? We learned on day 7, yesh omrim. You're not even yotze. Everyone agrees on day 9 you're yotze. It's just problematic to delay when you don't need to delay. But when you need to delay, you should delay so it's not done too early. But if it's Shabbos or Yom Tov, we're going to see we're not doche Shabbos, we're not doche Yom Tov. Ve'afal pi shehaya harakia mazhir ke'ein ora shel yom. Even though it's extremely bright outside and you're almost sure it's still daytime, so then we don't say for sure it's the day. Since you see three stars, then we say it's the next day. What's the Metzias nowadays? I'm not so sure. It could be this was confusing because the Shulchan Aruch paskin, we don't paskin like the Shulchan Aruch. Basically, nobody does. When it comes to Seis, the Shulchan Aruch holds there's two shkiyas, and it's only the second shkia that matters, and that shkia happens around 3/4 of a parsa of 72 minutes. I'm blanking on the time, but it's somewhere around 56 minutes, whatever it is, after what we call sunset. So maybe then it was confusing. But anyways, we have our clocks, we have our watches, and we know what the sunset is, and that's what we go by, so it's not really confusing. Let's read the next halacha. Many people said. Yeah. In Europe, many went like the Rabbeinu Tam. That's what the Shulchan Aruch. But nowadays, everyone follows the Gaonim, Kimat everyone. And let's read Vav, and we'll put the two together. But just because I mentioned Docha Shabbos, I'll just mention, thanks to Ramosha, this came up really yesterday, and we're going to see it again later. I was going to save it for later, but we mentioned that sometimes if it's a nidche, because let's say the baby's sick, and it's not going to be bisman. So we had what the Taz mentions that he holds we never do a bris shalo bismano on a Thursday, Friday. So we know already, and we're going to see it again on Shabbos. It's never Docha Shabbos. The only time it's Docha Shabbos or Lakuli Alma Thursday, Fridays, if it's on the 8th day, Bizman. Once it's a suffix or it's Shelo Bizman, it's beyond the 8th day, or it's a suffix that it's beyond the 8th day. We don't do it on Shabbos and Yom Tov. At least Yom Tov Rishon. We'll discuss Yom Tov Sheni later. Too much all at once. But when it comes to what about Thursday, Friday? So he says we don't do it on Thursday, Friday. So the Taz gives a reason because it's going to be more tsar for the baby on the third day and also on the Friday. So we don't do a bris if it's Shelo Bizmano, not on Thursday, not on Friday. The Taz writes that. The shach on the spot. I know the Kesef argues on the spot. Okay. The Yemina, so it's never done if Shelo Bizmano, Thursday, Friday, or Shabbos or Yantiv, because either it's going to cause too much sa'ar for the baby on Shabbos, right, the pain, or we're afraid it might, Taz doesn't say, brother's right, we're afraid it's going to cause Chilul Shabbos, because it's normal in the first 3 days to take care of the baby, do what you need to do, and you might want to heat up water, you might need to cut bandages, whatever you might need to do, it might lead to Chilul Shabbos. So that's the reasoning. Lamaisa Kimat all Ashkenazim in the world, they do a bris on Thursday and Friday, even if it's Shelo Bizmano. Again, there might be some communities that don't, but in general, Ashkenazim will always do it on a Thursday, Friday, and most Sephardim, as far as I know, will not do it on a Thursday, Friday. Chazon Rav Yosef was pushed not to do it on a Thursday and Friday. There are some Sephardim who did do it on Thursday and Friday, even if it's Shelo Bizmano, but it's more popular, I believe now, not to do it on a Thursday, Friday among Sephardic custom. Okay, so let's keep reading. Let's do Vav. Im le'altar. Kishehotzi havlad rosh ochutz prosdor. Niru shlosha kochavim benonim. Now, if you see 3 stars, so when there was three medium-sized stars, yesh lismach aleim shehu laila. Then we know for sure it's nighttime. It's tzeis hakochavim. Afilu hula machar Shabbos. Even if the next day is Shabbos, it's not a suffix, right? Because if it's a suffix 8th day or 9th day, sometimes now you have to wait till the 10th day to get out of the suffix. But here he says, no, you do it on the next day because now you know you saw 3 medium-sized stars, you know for sure it's nighttime. Aval. And I'll just point out here, the Shach is who makes it, he writes there's a distinction. If it's 3 little stars, it's a suffix. If it's 3 medium stars, it's not a suffix. Rabbi Akiva Eger on the spot says, whoa, I don't understand that. It should be the opposite. If you can see the little ones, Kol Shekain, you can see the big ones. So I'm not sure. Maybe the little ones, that's what we normally say, right? Maybe the little ones, just trying to think. So anyways, Rabbi Akiva Eger's, maybe they're not really stars. That's why I mentioned planets. Venus, Mars, and Jupiter, I think, are the 3 that you can see nowadays, all lined up. I saw last night, or 2 nights ago, but it's not Mars. There's 3 of them. I forget which 3. 2? Jupiter and Mercury? Venus and Jupiter are the ones? Okay. But anyways. Yeah, it's machlokas in the room if it was 2 or 3. Fine. Whatever it was. Planets, it's a good question. I think we say the planets are big and we don't rely on them. And they're... So anyways, let's go on. Right, you can see... Anyways, so that's why the big ones you can see even too early. But anyways, let's keep going. Rabbi Akiva Eger's main point was, don't focus on the stars, focus on the daylight. The reason why there was a suffix in hey, it's not because of the size of the stars. He's just quoting whatever it is from where he's quoting. But the point is, it's bright outside. So since it's so bright outside, you think the sun is still up, or you think it might still be up, but you see stars. So now you're confused. Because sometimes you don't see the sun. But again, according to the Shulchan Aruch, sunset, the real Shkia happens almost an hour after the sun sets. Or if there's a mountain or a hill, you don't see the sun anymore, but it's still bright outside. So anyways, if it's really bright outside and you assume the sun is still there, but you see 3 stars, that's when it's a suffix. And when it's in Vav, when it's not a suffix, it's because it's starting to get dark outside. And you see 3 stars. So then there's no suffix, and that's how Rabbi Akiva Kiveger explains the two. Okay, let's go on. Did we finish? About im shahu acharkach. Im lefi yeshu nir lehem shaya yom be'otza'at harosh. Ein lehem ela ma she'enei mar'ot v'yehei nimo lishmona afilu im ye'era b'shabbat. So then he says, now, let's say you have no clock and you have no watch. And right now, you look at the clock, it's an hour after Shkia, right? It's Eisa Kochavim, 100%, let's say, right? That's what we pass on. Whether it's 13 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, or most Jews live in the world, somewhere between 13 minutes and 25 minutes, 30 minutes is, again, it really depends where you live, but usually we're in that time frame. In England, maybe a little bit later. Yeah, a little bit later. It depends. Anyways, so whatever it is, the Shkia, once you get to Tseis, whatever, an hour after Shkia, you look at your clock and you go, well, I know the head came out 2 hours ago for sure. You just know because you know how much time elapsed. So if you know, even though you weren't looking at a clock at the time, but you know that everyone knows, everyone in the room was, of course, it was at least 2 hours. Maybe it was 3 hours, whatever it is, an hour and 40 minutes. In other words, if you get to a point where you know for sure it was before Shkia, without looking at this, the sky, and without looking at a watch, but you just know it, that's good enough. And then you say the day before, right? A couple hours ago in our story, it was the day before. That's the first day. And then you count 7 days from a couple hours ago. And then on that day, the 8th day, you do the Milah and it's Docha Shabbos. Don't second guess yourself. If you're sure that's what it was, then that's good enough. You don't have to see the sky. Okay, Zayin. Ein davar zeh telui batfila im nitpalim ba'od yom lo lahakol v'lo lahachmir. Okay, so very clear. When it comes to tefillah, so we know sometimes we could daven before the next day. It's not so common in the mornings, but it's more common in the afternoon, right? When we hold Shkia is Shkia. Let's say we're going to call it the astronomic sunset. And before that is the day before. After that is the next day, or, okay, there's a small period of Bein Hashmashos. Fine. But it has nothing to do with when you davened. We know you could daven Mincha or Marav really, by Plaga Mincha. So even if you daven Marav by Plaga Mincha, or you accepted Shabbos early, whatever it is, even if you did that before Shkia, because you're allowed to 100%, then that doesn't change the Metzias of the day. The day and night, right? Basically, for any halacha that's based on the time of the day, it goes based on the Metzias, and by the sun and the moon and the stars, whatever, sunrise, sunset, by the Bria Sa'olam, how the world was created. It has nothing to do with you, fudging it. By you could be Mosif Shabbos, right? That's Tosefah Shabbos. You can add early and late. That has nothing to do with the Zman of the Milah. And so to Tefillah, there's an inyan of davening that you could daven starting Plaga Mincha. Anyways, that has nothing to do with, and if you daven Marav during Bein Hashmashos, that has no bearing on the child. That's the time zone of Suffolk. It doesn't matter if you daven Marav or not. Okay, then it's clear enough. Let's go to the next one. Reish Samech Gimel. Yalechu Adam o Yarok. All right. O Shabanav Meitim Machmas Milah. Aleph. Katan Shehu Yarok. A child that is yellow, jaundice. Siman Shelo Nafal Bo Damo. It's a sign that his blood is underdeveloped, right? Breaking down the bilirubin, whatever it is. So I read that starting from 5 5%, above 5%, you can already start in the blood. You can start to see changes on the skin color, but as far as being considered jaundice lahalacha, to push off a bris or not, that takes masora. It takes experience and training from a moel. Where do you what point? Once you see it in the skin, that's when we generally start waiting. But again, exactly how yellow, it's a question, and it could be the whole body, part of the body, but again, that really just takes experience and masora. Where do you do it? Some poskim mention a percent where it becomes a problem, like 10%, 12%, 13%. Primarily, it's based on the training and the masora of the moel. So usually we assume it's not a problem, modern day medicine, but it depends how much, and it depends why they're jaundice. Really, it also depends why. Is it just because of a little bilirubin, or there's more of a medical condition? So anyways, you always have to, for every case, you have to just double check with the doctor. Obviously make sure it's not a hemophiliac. That's much more serious. And double check with your moel. So you have to obviously check a few days before you start announcing when the bris is. Okay. And when do you do it? As soon as he looks healthy again, right? This is not a case of choli kol guf. You do not wait 7 days. You do it right away as soon as the color is back to normal, whatever is considered normal. Or if he's too red than normal, it's a sign that his blood did not properly develop and circulate. Ella bein or labasar, maybe it's too much between the skin and the muscle. And we wait until he looks normal. And we must be extremely cautious with all these areas of health and sakana. She'ein malin vlad sheyeshba chashash choli. And if you're nervous, you have a reason to be worried about the health or the health of the child. So then you delay the sakanat nefasha doche etako, because sakanat nefashos, if you're afraid of the life, we are always push it off. Even if you're afraid, it can lead to sakana, right? We learned even if the child's it doesn't feel well, even if you wouldn't call him sick, but he doesn't feel well, so he's in pain. So we push it off. We never play around with sakanat nefashos. She'efshar lo lamul le'achar zman. All right, we learned obviously you don't want to delay for no reason, but the truth is you can always do it later. If it wasn't done on the 8th day, you can do it on the 10th day. You can do it 2 months later. You can always do it. But you can never bring back one soul once they are gone. Okay, bet. Isha shamala b'na rishon. A woman brings her son to the moel to be, and so the first child, umeit machmat milah. And then the child dies because of the milah, right? Either immediately or even a few days later, because as long as it's kashur, the child didn't get better, got sick, didn't feel good, I don't know, got out of it, got a fever, whatever it is, relatively short, right after the milah, and they didn't get healthy, sheikh, however you define that, but as long as it's kashur to the milah, sheikh shila koko, the child got weak, fine, koko. And now the mother has another child, and the other one also has the bris milah on time, umeis machmas milah, and dies again. Harei huchsaka shabanea meiti machmas milah. So we say there's a chazaka that her children, they die when they get milah, because of the milah. Again, normally, we're going to see this goes on both sides. So keep reading. What was I just going to say? Chazaka. So we know the machlokas in Chazal and the Gemara if chazaka is with 2 times or 3 times. So the general rule is whenever it's a case of sakanas nefashos, we always paskin 2 times is a real chazaka. Whenever it's not pikuach nefesh, so then we say 3. And to undo it, so there's also a machloket. Let's say the third child, they do a bris milah, right? They weren't supposed to, so they do it anyway. And then now the third one comes out fine. So then it's a machlokas if you need one time to undo it or 2 times to undo it. Whatever. It's lo shna mi ba'al echad or mi shnayim. Now it makes no difference if the mother who brought, right, she had 2 children who died because of the milah. There's no difference if it's from one husband or from 2 husbands. From each child, from a different husband or the same one. Makes no difference. V'lo tamul shlishi. We don't do a bris milah on the 3rd one on the 8th day. We wait until he gets older and stronger. And again, it's not exactly clear how much older and how much, but I don't know. Ask your Rav, ask the Mo, ask the doctors, but it has to be considerably older and stronger. V'hu hadin im ish echad mal beno rishon v'sheni umetu machmat milah. And the same thing if it's the father brings his child to have a milah and the first 2 die. And again, also doesn't matter. Here, keep reading. Lo yumol ashlishi. We don't do the 3rd one until the 3rd child gets older and more mature. Bein shahayu lo mi isha achas bein mishtayim. It doesn't matter if it's 1 wife or 2 wives. Same thing. However, I said same thing, but Haga yesh v'yesh cholkim usrilu do lo shayach b'ish rak b'isha v'nireh desafik nafashas hakel. The Rama points out there's a second opinion, but he agrees with the Shulchan Aruch anyway. Some say it's more talui on the mother. Again, not that I understand, but some say the blood comes more from the mother, or she's more. The Gemara in Shabbos says that.
The blood comes from the mother and the bone
right.
From the father.
Okay. So the bones come from the father and the blood comes from the mother, but again, I don't really understand that. And that's if you know the daf, that'd be great. Anyways, Lamaisa makes no difference. Okay, Gimel. Isha mala bina umeit machmat mila, v'gam achota mala bina umeit machmat mila. Not only is it if the mother has 2 children, even you have 2 sisters. Or we're going to even 2 brothers, whatever it is. The 2 brothers, 2 sisters, they each have it with their first child in a row, right? Each of them their first child, but it's in the same family. And that's also a reason for the 3rd one that we don't do it when they're 3 days old. Gam sha'ar ha'achayot lo yamulu b'neihem. So then their next children's the other sisters. No one does a bris milah el yamtenu ad sheyigdelu v'itchazku bahem until they get stronger. Dalet. Nolad keshehu ma'ul. Tzarich latafat dam mimenu dam brit. Okay, so this we touched upon. A child that's born fully ma'ul. So then you don't do hatafas. Then you have to do hatafas dam brit. We do that on the 8th day. Umiyu benachat tzrich hamilta lemivdeka yafe beyadayim v'marit einayim. But when you do it, you check it very carefully. You look very carefully. You feel v'lo befarzala, not with metal. You use your nails so that we don't do any. I think it means so we don't damage. V'ro'in v'nizharim heich malinato umamtinin lo harbe, and you very careful to check if you need to add, because many times I think more common than not. Again, I'm not an expert over here, but when a child looks like they're born mahul, really there's areas that's not completely mahul. So you have to check very carefully to see if you need to add a little bit more. You do it, and you want to do it carefully. You don't damage anything or hurt anything unnecessarily. And we're not worried about doing it on the 8th day. You do whatever you need to do on the 8th day. Now, is it doche Shabbos? Do you say a bracha when you do hatafas dam bris? So it depends. If it's 100% kosher, in other words, there's no orla whatsoever, so then it's not doche Shabbos and you don't say a bracha. I think we're going to see more of this. The Shach just points that out over here. But if the child is not properly mahul, and we're going to learn about tzitzin ha'me'akvin soon, but if it's not properly mahul and it needs to, and you have tzitzin ha'me'akvin, you have orla that's preventing it from being kosher, so then you do say a bracha, and it is doche Shabbos. Fine, one last comment, and we're going to see that using But we're going to get to it when we do the priya, that there's an Indian to use a nail, just so that you don't damage it, and also so that has to do with the klipas. We'll mention that shortly after.